Hello and welcome to another inspiring conversation. My name's Claire Westwood, Chief Creative Maverick, and I'm here to activate luminary leaders to make their transformational difference here in the world. And today I have the very lovely Moyra with me. And Moyra and I have been connected on socials for quite some while and were accidentally in the same event last year in spring and didn't realise we were in the same room, so missed an opportunity to actually connect in person. But a couple of weeks ago, when I had the inspiration to start doing interviews on my podcast and on YouTube, I put a little post on the socials, and Moyra said, "Are you looking for people to come on?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So the first thing I want everybody to take home is just reach out and ask if people want you to talk to them, because me reaching out is how I've got all these interviews done, and Moyra reaching out and offering to be an interviewee is how we first had a chat last week, and then we've got together this week. So that's my first top tip for everybody, is just start connecting with people and reaching out and seeing how you can help each other. So great, we've done some teaching already, Moyra. First top tip. So thanks for joining me. How are things with you today?
They are good. Very good. Thank you very much, Claire.
Fantastic. And you're in Brighton, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Fantastic. Lovely. So Moyra has a really interesting creative story about how her life's unfolded along the way, as all these have. So Moyra, why don't you start with, what you were like when you were younger? Were you always creative? Was creativity always like a part of who you think you were wired? I mean, we're all creative. Let's just get that out to start with. But, were you creative as a child? Was it something that was encouraged for you, or were you distracted onto a kind of corporate work path at any point?
So actually, no, I've never managed to get distracted onto a corporate work path.
Congratulations.
I don't think it's really ever been suitable for me. I have always been creative in various different ways. But as a child, I was definitely encouraged. Actually, I was very lucky in that respect. My mum was a teacher and she was very creative herself. She was a very talented seamstress, craftsperson, and she taught art. So I was very much kind of encouraged from a young age. And my dad was an architect who was a brilliant drawer. He used to just he could just sit and draw a building. I mean, he loved building, so that's what he would draw. And I used to sit and sketch with him. And I, as a younger person, I was a sketcher. So I used to take, back in the day before I had, mobile phones to distract me, I would take a little sketchbook and sit in cafes and draw people. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed drawing, and I like people. I drew people. He liked buildings. He drew buildings. But anyway, I suppose that's my background. And so as a young person, I was definitely encouraged to try all sorts of different. I remember I'd get really obsessed. Like every summer holiday, I would be obsessed with some new thing. I remember one summer I built a paper theatre, like out. Well, it was, I don't know what happened to it. It was brilliant. And still always really loved those kind of. My mum had one of those things that used to you lifted it up and you looked through a little hole, and it was all these little things like a sort of scenery flats, and it was the Great Exhibition. It was amazing, and you could pick it up and you could look all the way down it with like. And so I think that was my inspiration for that. And one summer I crocheted, got madly into crochet and crocheted a whole blanket.
I remember.
12.
Yeah, I remember my mum, I think every Christmas I got some kind of craft kit, something to do. I think just to keep me occupied on Boxing Day. It's like all the kids, my mum had 4 kids, let's give everybody something to do on Boxing Day sort of thing. But I always enjoyed it, a rug thing or a different type of picture, or, this would have been in the sort of, late 70s. But yes, my mum taught me how to knit and to crochet and to use a sewing machine and, all of these kind of things. So it's good to, but it also sounds like, your parents were role models, as in they did what they loved to do. It was creative, but they enjoyed what they did for kind of work, which is always a great thing to see.
Dad was absolutely in love with architecture. He literally didn't have any other job, which is extraordinary these days, isn't it? Nothing at all. Started work in an architect's office, and went to university, studied architecture, became an architect. That was it. Loved it.
Fantastic. So how was your schooling? Like, were you encouraged to be creative at school, or was it sort of something that was more academic and then sort of creativity was maybe a little bit on
Yeah,
the
I mean, I
side?
think when it came to A levels, I ended up doing 4 A levels because of that academic thing, and
Mm,
art was the kind of extra one I took on because I didn't want to not do it.
yeah.
I did it all, I was very into drama as well as a
Mm,
kid. So I did all the school plays and I loved my art class. And then at sixth form, I opted to do art as an extra, although I got a D for it, so a bit annoyed about that, but there we
mm,
are.
mm.
What do they know? But yeah, I did
Yeah, it's
that's where I
that
got to.
external judgment, isn't it? Of, does it fit in this slot? Like, I was very much discouraged from doing O-level art because I wouldn't have got a good enough grade and it would have made the school look not very good. But I was desperate to do either art or needlework with my academic subjects. And in the end, yeah, the timetable and parental and teacher pressures meant I did physics instead. So there you go.
That's just the same thing, isn't it? Just the
Which was
same
kind of
thing.
useful because I went into nursing, but and so all my creativity was out of school basically by then.
Yeah.
I sang in the choir, but anything else I wanted to do, making stuff and making my own clothes and singing and writing little shows and stuff was all done outside of school by then. Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? It has to become this sort of extra thing that you do, which, it kind of, I mean, yeah, I've got strong views on that. I think it doesn't matter if it's an extra thing that you do, as long as you do it. That's what I
Yeah,
think I'm at.
and also that, that, I mean, the somebody judging it from outside, like, you're not good enough to do this exam in it, kind of thing. And
Yes.
and it's really interesting, the more I've got into art, like as I've got older, it's like, oh well, if we were allowed to do, intuitive collage, or I'd just been allowed to play, or abstract had been a thing, it would I'd probably have enjoyed it even more, sort of thing. But anyway, we're talking about the olden days of schooling. But I think it's so important to feel creatively expressed. It's
Oh,
all, I've got
totally.
so
Yeah,
many books on
absolutely.
creativity, and they're like, it's almost as essential as breathing, but we're not really told that.
Absolutely. No, it's most of the people. So as you know, I run art workshops now, and I'm very much around kind of encouraging people to sort of take up creativity again, and we're very aligned in that. And
Mm,
I find so often people who come and, oh, yes, like yourself, to do art as an O level because either I wasn't good enough, I'm using the fingers there to kind of like, what's that even
absolutely.
mean? What is good enough? And or they were kind of pushed into a more academic thing because it was better for their career, or
Mm,
they were, yes, all of those things, and people sort of stop doing it, and it
mm,
becomes this thing that you're only allowed to do if you are so-called good enough to do
mm,
it. You have to, excel and shine at it and get good marks for whatever however they judge it. You have to get good marks in it, otherwise there's no point, and you really should just put down your paintbrush and stop doing all of that kind of stuff. And it makes me so upsets me actually, because I
mm,
think that having this outlet, having a creative outlet, is so good
mm,
for your spirit, for your soul, for
totally.
your well-being,
Mm,
and there's so many reports, and you can find all the evidence as like actually engaging in the arts is good for your health, it's good for your
mm,
mental health for sure, it's just makes you feel better.
yep.
And yeah, I find that really annoying, and it's like, look, as long as it makes you feel better, that's the thing you should be doing. It's so natural for humans, sorry, on my horse now. It's so natural for humans
It's all good.
to mark make, to express themselves, to engage in. It's a natural human thing, and we
Mm,
do it because it's part of what makes us human. And engage, it's a way of engaging in the world. It's a way of dealing with the world,
mm,
even processing the world. So many
mm.
different things. It's necessary human activity, I think.
Yeah, totally. And I think, looking back at sort of more even sort of pagan things, or even before that, sort of tribal, there's a lot of storytelling and gathering and art making and dancing and music making. You know, these were collective community activities that were an essential part of the village or the tribe, or celebrating the wheel of the year, you know, whatever it was, calling in the harvest, you know, calling in the rains. And I think it's so interesting when we look back at the kind of the history of being creative and creativity and community, and how far we've got from that. Although I think we're kind of coming back the other way a bit again now, which is wonderful. I mean, the other thing as well is only being good at one thing. You know, like, you can't be good at multiple things, or you can't even enjoy multiple things. You know, are you an artist or an actor or a musician or a painter or a photographer or a, well, kind of, I like all of those things. I like expressing myself in multiple ways creatively. And much as I've tried to kind of hone it down to a very small thing, it's sort of like, it's never going to work.
No, and
There's always part
why
of me
should
missing
it?
if I miss one of them out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's like everything has to be professionalized, and you have
Yeah,
to be an expert in it, and
yeah,
you have to niche, and but it's just, you know, that's ridiculous. It's like, well, I'm a human, you know, I
yeah,
like all these things, and
yeah.
doing these things is really enjoyable and engages me with the world and other humans, and I feel so good for doing it. That seems like a good reason for
Yeah,
doing
for
things to
sure.
me.
And I interviewed Evelyn, who also is in the intuitive art world with me. And yeah, we were talking about, you know, the first time she started putting paint on a canvas, and she hadn't really done it ever before. And just the pleasure she got from, you know, the sensory pleasure from the colors, or putting your fingers in the paint and
Oh,
feeling it, or,
totally.
you know, moving your
Yeah.
body, like the massive art. So those of you listening on the podcast, you know, Moyra's got this huge piece of art behind her that she's created. And you know, that when we're making massive art, you're using your whole body to do that. So it's a sort of whole body experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a visceral pleasure. I did this thing that I was at a sort of like a festival, or yeah, it was a kind of festival, a well-being festival, and I had a big canvas and I had paints, and I was kind of in the sort of the general kind of milling area. It's not a foyer, but you know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
where people were kind of coming and going, and it was offering people the opportunity just to paint on a canvas,
Mm.
literally. And so many people would just go, oh yeah, all right then, you know, and pick a brush and just put the brush down the canvas and just gonna go, ooh, like, you know, this is like,
Yeah.
oh, this is, I
Yeah.
haven't done this in a long time. Oh, this is good, you know.
Yeah.
It's like that. It just feels good. And if you enable this kind of like, look, it doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to look like anything, it doesn't have to
Mm.
be good, it doesn't have, you don't have to draw a brilliant, I don't know, perfect rendition of a horse or whatever it
Yeah.
is. You
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
have to have an idea and execute it.
Yeah.
Literally just to put, like, I know this woman, let's remember this woman, she would like put a brush in, it was blue paint, and she just pulled it down the canvas, and was just, you could see it's almost like shivers went down her with like this, so enjoyable, so
Mm.
enjoyable. And you know, I
Mm.
think it's like, give the canvas, here it is, have a go. If that's you, then do it more, you know, follow that joy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know when I started doing a lot of intuitive art in lockdown with an intuitive mentor of mine, Alexis Cohen, you know, I'd never really used paints, not since I was a child, or, you know, when I was traumatized at O level. And I had some watercolors and some, you know, acrylics in a tube and some paintbrushes. And I'm like, I literally got no idea how to get them out of the things onto the pet. Like, do I put water? How do I do it? And so it really became a kind of experiment and a play and and I just loved putting colors together. And you know, when we had a conversation before, I said I ended up photographing these little details of sort of a really watery blob of watercolor paint that had like maybe a bit of pink and white swirled together in it. And just, I was absolutely mesmerized by this tiny little droplet of kind of swirling color. And I felt like I deprived myself of something really important for years at that point. I was like, why did nobody tell me this was so much fun and so pleasurable, like visually, and you know, just the joy of playing with color and shape and just letting things unfold. And you know, you talk about having a canvas and putting color on it, or creating something like that's behind you. It's like magic. isn't it?
It is,
You know, we
yes.
start from a blank page or a blank stage, or I do a lot of improv, and it's just a space where there's some humans milling around, and something happens in that space that didn't exist before, and it's just so brilliant.
Yes. Yes, creative magic. It is absolutely magic, and that's a great word. I love that. Often talk about creative magic, and not everyone gets it, that's for
Mm,
sure, but it's really nice to hear it come out of your mouth because it really is special, and it's only in a way it's this beautiful magic that you can get from
mm,
being in the world. And then,
mm,
there's various ways of getting it, but this is definitely one of them. There's kind of like, oh, that feeling of making yes, just a line of blue paint, or playing with the color, or as you say, looking at the colors swirling on a little blob of watercolor, and just that sort of wonderfulness. And it is a kind of awe. And yes, some people love, they love gardening, or they love I mean, I'm not really a gardener, to be honest, but I love being in nature. You can do it
mm,
that, or I live near the sea, so just going and sitting in front of the sea, and there's this wonderful feeling that's part of life, and gives you this way of being in the world that feels magical, that's
mm,
accessible,
mm,
and a really, really beautiful thing to kind of get involved with.
mm. Yeah, totally. So going back to what you said earlier about never being caught up in anything corporate, like what happened when you left school then? What were you up to then?
So when I left school, I did go to university because I got the grades, actually. So I went along with that, and I thought, if I don't, I'll go to art school. But I got the grades, and so I went off to university. I actually went to Sussex University, so that was brighter, although that's not the reason I'm still here, because I left swearing I'd never come back. I had a very different impression of Brighton at the time, but off I went, and so I did keep up with the sketching, because I just really enjoyed it. And I went for my year abroad, I went to Paris for a year, which is a
Mm,
wonderful city to be creative in, because you can sit and draw in a cafe in Paris, or in a park, or wherever, and nobody interrupts you or kind of thinks you're doing something really weird, because Paris is the kind of city where people just play the cello in the park. I know,
yeah,
it's lovely.
yeah.
And yes, pre-phone back then, and I would just sit and I didn't know anyone, so I just drew and drew and drew and drew, and really enjoyed that. Then after that, I went to London to work in sort of film and television, which is, I don't know, that's one of the things I wanted to do. I thought it'd be very cool to go and do that. And I got my first job as a receptionist at a computer animation company.
Mm.
And I actually managed to get the sack from that. I don't know. I really hated it. They probably could just tell by the look on my face. It was so boring sitting on a front desk, answering the phone and
Yeah.
typing letters. Not a big fan. But what I did straight away after that, actually, was with my friend, who I discovered also really loved sewing,
Mm.
was to set up a business making patchwork cushions. And
Okay.
so we did that, and
Yep.
we then figured out that actually, if even if we sewed from dawn till dusk, we
Yeah.
would not really make a very good living, and that didn't involve, like, we also had to go and sell the cushions as
Yeah.
well. So we thought, well, let's do sofas. We started doing patchwork sofas, and then we were doing sofas, and we're like, we kind of really need to do the whole room. This is still not working financially. So we decided to become interior designers. And we did a course called Outlook, both of us. Some friends of ours persuaded us to do it. Said, oh, you're in business, it'll be brilliant, go do it. And it was one of those personal development courses. I
Okay.
think, I know, Landmark Forum might be a little bit like it. But
Yeah.
anyway, we went and did that, and it's very good for going, oh, just go and do it, just do
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
off we set, and literally, that I think the next week we'd managed to land ourselves somehow this job, re-interior designing a old pub in Soho to become like a cool bar, and
Amazing.
another restaurant as well, and some other bits of another bar in Camden. So we did that. It was quite hectic. awful. Like, the people were awful. They bounced checks on us for supplies that we'd spent out for like £30. The whole thing was, they were completely insane. However, at the end of it, we had, you know, a bar in Soho, which was
Mm,
now a bar,
mm,
and we could say, yeah, we did that, right, you know, because we
yeah,
did, and
yeah,
we learned quite a lot on that job. And so we ended up working. We did lots of Ted Baker shops all over the country
wow,
and various other projects. And then the builder at the Ted Baker shops undercut us. Like, once they knew what I know they were doing the work, and they're like, oh, we can do it without having to pay this person.
yeah,
So we got sacked again. Well, undercut and kind of like
yeah,
booted out. And then we realized, I think it was, we had all our eggs in one basket. Fundamentally,
mm,
we're doing quite well, but we really only had one major client.
yeah,
And so, in order to save the friendship, we decided to stop working together, because we were starting to get a bit bickery about who
mm,
was doing what and all of that
mm,
stuff. So we stopped doing that. And yes, that person is still my friend, and a very dear friend. So I'm really glad about that. And I decided, right, I'm going to work in TV. And so I then went off and started working in, and it's not that, you know, I just suddenly started doing it, but, you know, I did work in film and television, and I worked mostly in documentaries, and I ended up as an archive producer. And I have to say, I really, really enjoyed it.
yeah,
I really enjoy me, you know, and I enjoy the company of media people. I was working in documentaries,
yeah,
and a lot of them were like drama documentaries. And because of the like factual television, it's always you're a really small office, and you hire
mm,
people in and you do everything. So
mm,
as a coordinator, I was organizing costumes or locations,
mm,
like, yeah, finding the archive footage, or kind of lots of different, very, very interesting, always a different topic that you're researching. And I really enjoyed it. However, one of the things about that was, because it was always freelance, you
right, yeah,
always like work for like 3 years without holiday, and
yeah,
be kind of exhausted, and then take time off. But then I wouldn't find a job for another 4 months. So then I'd work for another 3 years, because they kind of tend to roll in, you know, you work on one job, and there's like, you're there, so you get hired for another one. And so it
mm,
went on like that. And every now and again, I think, I hate this, I'm going to go and get a job doing something else. And I tried that for a bit. So I've had quite a lot of different jobs. I worked in an arts marketing organization. I was the yoga and Pilates manager at Try Yoga for a while. And yeah, various different
yeah,
jobs. And then I had a baby, and realized that film and television, I try these jobs back in film and television. And yes, it's not very child friendly.
mm,
Fundamentally, it's just not. It's like, there's a transmission date, that's it, that's your deadline. It's like, you can't
yeah,
not be there. And so I stopped. It's like,
yeah.
okay, I have to do something else
Yeah,
now.
so it's almost like you had the feeling that I can't carry on like this, and then some major event like having a baby to care for and going, I can't keep working like this with these deadlines, makes that decision for you, or helps it maybe be a bit easier
Well, I mean, yes, I
or a bit
suppose
more
so. I would have
urgent.
kept on with it. I mean, I did find it really interesting. It's like, it was like a sort of, I don't know, it's not like a, I was going to say it's like a bad relationship, but it wasn't. It was a really great job. I really
Yeah,
loved it. It
yeah,
just, anyway. So yes, child rearing and film and television don't mix
yeah,
very well.
absolutely. Yeah,
Um, and so during this time, when I was basically for, also I had several marriages, so getting pregnant wasn't easy.
mm,
I didn't want to, after all that, hand my baby over to somebody else to
yeah,
look after them either.
yeah,
So I was a stay-at-home mum for, well, 3.5 years, really, doing
okay,
little bits of things here and there,
yeah,
but mainly not working. And during this time, this is like, you know, so this is how I ended up doing what I do now.
yeah,
Is I did start dreaming, like literally dreaming of painting big abstracts,
mm,
huge abstract paintings that involved that. So like you're saying, that physicality, you know, really
mm,
big. stuff. And so I really wanted to do that. And it
And
was
where did that drive or that urge come from?
I don't know. I mean, I was dreaming of it. I was
Right.
dreaming that I was doing
Literally
it.
dreaming.
Literally dreaming.
Right.
Yes. Like wake up
Perfect.
in the morning, I've had a dream about painting a big canvas.
Beautiful.
So it at the same time, it was round about the beginning of everybody having blogs,
Okay. Yeah.
and just at the beginning of Facebook
Yeah.
and blogs. So I had a blog, and I used to be able to, so it worked like you read somebody's blog, you'd stumble across a blog that you liked, and then they'd have a list of the blogs that they would read, and you'd sort of
Mm.
follow these little trails. And I found through this there were these things called art retreats where you could go
Yeah.
for 3 days and just be creative, which
Mm.
when you're looking after a small child, you don't have, was that, you don't have your arms, it felt like, because
Yeah.
you're always having to carry something or
Yeah.
tend to something. You don't have time, you don't have,
Yeah.
you can't actually do anything. You've got toddlers, you're just chasing around after
You
them.
learn to paint with your feet when you're a parent.
Oh, well, I see. I didn't try that, but anyway, I wanted to, and I was also looking for, what can I do as
Yeah.
well. And because I drew, my first instinct was like, right, I'm going to do children's portraits. So I was
Mm.
going to draw children's portraits, and I
Yeah.
found this course by this woman called Kelly Ray Roberts, whose blog I read about how to start a creative business. And in her blog, she was the one actually who was like, she'd gone on an art retreat. She'd been a social worker,
Mm.
and she then was now an artist, and very successfully,
Mm.
and an illustrator perhaps. And so she'd gone on, what had changed for her was she'd gone on an art retreat, and I was like, oh, I really want to go on one of those. And that's
Mm.
this little trail I found. There were these things called art retreats, and I really wanted to go on one, but I had a baby. They were expensive. They were in America, which is all kind of like, it's not happening, right?
Yeah.
It's not happening. But I wanted to go, and I wanted to go so much that I sent off for one of their brochures to this one called Squam, which I think was one of the original art retreat things. And I got the brochure. It was lovely. It's like a little book. And in it, there was a picture of a woman painting in the way that I imagined I would paint,
Mm.
very physical, like big, colourful brush strokes. And the
Mm.
canvas, she got it on the ground. I was like, I want to paint like her.
Yeah.
And I photocopied it and had it, on my vision board. That's what I want to be doing.
And that's
And
amazing, isn't it? To sort of dream something and then be led along the path by these little breadcrumbs and clues, and then seeing somebody doing the sort of thing you want to do. However, it might go, oh, it's in America and it's this and it's that, but it's like, oh, there's evidence that like somebody somewhere is doing it or could teach me how to do it, or
absolutely, yeah. And
amazing.
I began to think, well, what I'm going to have to do is to start an art retreat, because they didn't seem to be them here. They seem to
Yeah.
be, no disparaging at all, but there seem to be things like you go on a watercolor holiday with
Yes.
some old people, but there didn't seem to be this kind of art
Yeah.
retreat thing going on,
Yeah.
which seemed to be, I would say, younger people. Everybody was evidently kind of in their sort of 30s, 40s, 50s, but
Mm.
not like a retired person's holiday type of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And I really wanted to go, and I started thinking, well, I'm going to have to just organize one, because
Mm.
they don't exist in this country, and that can be something I'm going to do. And I went quite far down this path, but I was also at the time I was doing a course with, I think it was this, must have been the Kelly Ray Roberts one, about
Mm.
how to start a creative business. And in it, there was 800 people on this course.
Wow.
Um, and it was run on a blog. So there were just comments. So there would be a
That's
blog
incredible,
post.
isn't it?
Yeah. And then there'd be all these comments, and it was overwhelming, because she was on the West Coast. She was like somewhere near Seattle, I think, or Portland.
Mm.
And by the time I got up in the morning, it was just overwhelming, and I
Yeah.
couldn't, I thought, I can't connect with, there's too many people.
Yeah.
But I found there was 10 British people on it, so I connected with them, some of whom I'm still in connection with.
Amazing.
And one of them sort of announced, oh, I'm going to do an art retreat. And it's like, oh, okay then. And I went sort of like, fair enough, I'll go to that then. It's at least in this
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
And I looked at it, and it was the same tutor that the picture I'd cut out.
Wow.
This woman, it was Flora Bowley,
Yeah.
and so yeah, it was like, oh, yeah, that's it. I absolutely have to go to this,
Yeah.
because she's the woman who's on my vision board, and this is like, it's the sign.
So
And
good.
I paid the deposit immediately, even though I didn't really have the money. And then the next day, as I say, I was doing bits and pieces. There was this really random job that I hadn't got. This one, it was like being a kind of researcher person, or a kind of I don't know, like it's like market research, and you had to
Yeah.
fit the kind of profile. And I hadn't got something because they got somebody else, but this other person was ill, so they rang me up and said, would I do it? And it was 4 days work, and that was it, that was the money I needed. And so so I went on this art retreat,
Love
and
it.
yes, that was I loved it as much more. I think I loved it more than I even thought I would.
Mm,
It
mm.
was amazing, and
Yeah.
just blew
And
my mind, and fed me spiritually so much. I was very shiny for
yeah,
about six
and that's
months. I mean, it was
and that's
amazing.
that's that's another way that I think, magic, divine guidance, or however we can describe it. It's you couldn't logically create that if you tried, but like every little step unfolded another step. And as we're talking, I've got Flora Bowley's book Creative Revolution on my bookcase, but it's facing outwards because I love the cover, and it's it's just gorgeous. Yeah. Amazing. So what was the experience of being at that art retreat, which is something that you'd wanted to do for ages, or you've been
It was
dreaming
so
about it almost
It was
beforehand?
so energizing.
Yeah.
That was the main thing. It was a bit like, firstly, that everybody around me was like into it. Like, so everyone's
Mm,
a creative, and that was really exciting.
yeah.
It was the first time also, and I do think this factors into it, the first time I'd spent any time away from my son for 3.5 years. He was a
Yeah.
terrible sleeper. And so I just gave up even trying to go out.
Yeah.
But he was finally sleeping,
Yeah.
I was able to leave.
Amazing.
So there was that.
Yeah.
But to be able to spend 3 days painting, but the way the way she was like, it's very emergent painting, it's very much mark making,
Mm,
and then allowing the paintings to kind of arrive rather than anything I'd done before, because like I
mm,
said, I used to draw, so I draw what was in front of me. And
yeah.
I love that meditative state. When you're drawing, you're really immersed in it, but this was like very different but
Mm,
fantastic. And it felt like, the way I describe it, and I always have described it, is a bit like, I'm going to have to, you can't see this, but I'm kind of plugging in to life force and
mm,
drinking deeply, like I was so thirsty for
mm,
it. And it was just filling me up. And
mm.
I just, yeah, sucking on life force, like drinking it in until it was just full and
Yeah.
really shiny. I was just glowing, and it really felt like that for, like I say, 6 months afterwards. I felt so full up from that experience.
Mm,
Um, that was it. Yeah, I'm doing one of those a year. That was it. I was like, absolutely, I'm going to do one a year, and I did for about 5 years.
mm,
Went on different art retreats. I did end up going to California to one. Who was It was Tracy Verdugo was there,
mm.
and Alina Hennessy, and a woman called Madeline Mulvaney, and oh, it was just brilliant. It's just brilliant.
Mm. And that's so interesting, this whole for those listening just on the podcast, like Moyra was basically miming like almost like electrical plugs going into a socket with
Yes,
her
with my
hands.
hands, like
It's like
plugging in, like
and I think there
like
is, and when we get back reconnected with our creativity, it is like that. It's like, oh my God, there's been a part of me that's missing, that kind of
yes,
a part of my aliveness, a part of my expression, a part of my soul, a part of my essential self, effectively. And I've got a friend who I'm hoping to interview as well at some point, and he's really into music, loves going to gigs, and he described, his first gig after, I'm getting tingles down my legs talking about this now. That's one of my signs. And he described, the first gig he went to after lockdown as feeling like a blood transfusion. you know, because
Yeah,
for him
yeah,
being in a musical arena with musicians and the crowd and being immersed
it's
and
like
having it,
this,
and he was like,
this.
he said, Claire, I felt like I'd had a transfusion. Does that sound weird? I was like, not at all. Not to me, it
No,
doesn't.
no, and I've never
Totally
heard
get
anyone
it.
else
Yeah,
talk about it. Totally, I totally get that.
yeah.
It really
And I
was
went to
like that, and it was like,
but the first show I went to after lockdown, when we were allowed to go out, but I felt confident enough to go into a theatre space. I went to the theatre in Bristol and saw the show Hairspray, which I absolutely loved. And
brilliant.
I was sat on the balcony and just hearing the audience, like the buzz of an audience all excited to see this show. And I
Yes,
think we all felt it, like oh my God, we've missed this so much, you know, and like
yes,
it was almost like there was a ripple of gratitude that we were all there and we were about to see this. I mean, it's such a great show. I love it, but I just that feeling of, oh God, I've missed this. Like I've been starving for
yeah,
something I
yeah.
didn't know I was missing, sort of thing. So yeah, amazing.
Totally. It's the words I didn't realize how thirsty I was for this, you know. It was like
Beautiful.
it's like you don't know you're thirsty and then you have a little sip of water and you're like, "Oh my God, I've got to drink the whole glass." It was like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, amazing.
Oh, amazing.
So,
Yeah.
so what did you do with that then? That inspiration?
So, I through that as well. So I also went on one that had a Tisha Moore and Orly Avenary. Quite how to pronounce her name, but I think it's Avenary. And so discovered art journaling, which was handy because painting on massive canvases where I live, you know, I live in a small terraced house in Brighton, in part of Brighton called Hanover. So I didn't have a big art studio where I could have giant canvases. And
Yeah.
art journaling is a tabletop but version, you know, like on
Mm,
paper,
yeah.
and involving collage, but also this very layered approach, slightly
Right.
different, but you know, there's still this intuitive layering kind of emergent practice that's
Yeah.
happening. Means that you can just play and you can't get it wrong, and
Mm,
like art journaling is like so you know, a sketchbook practice that you can
mm,
just do for yourself, and that
mm,
made it much more accessible to me. So
mm,
I discovered that, so I started, I loved it, you know. It's basically my happy place, and
mm,
I thought, well, if I like it, probably other people will like it too. So I started, you know, doing groups, and you know, I'll do an art journaling workshop, and I did
mm,
that round at a friend's house. That was the first one I did, and other people did like it. And
mm,
then a few years down the line from doing that, I also I stumbled across this beautiful teaching studio in Hove, and I was like, oh, I can do a painting workshop here. I can do it
mm.
bigger. And
Yeah.
so I started doing that. So concurrently, actually, the other thing is the moment I got back off art retreat, because I was also looking for work, because I hadn't, you know, I was, you know, doing children's portraits, I was doing the little bits of this and that, but
Yeah.
I really needed to get another job, and I didn't, you know, I'm starting from scratch really. But the
Mm.
day after I got back from that art retreat, I met somebody I vaguely knew. I vaguely they did, not really, but they asked how I was. I gushed about how I'd just been on Salt Retreat and how amazing it was. And I said, "How are you?" And they said, "Oh, yeah, things are going really well. Actually, we're thinking of hiring somebody." And it just came out my mouth, "Oh, hire me. What is it? You can train me." You know, I didn't even know what it was. I was just like, and they went, "It's only part time." I was like, "Brilliant. That's what I'm looking for."
Perfect.
And there we go. So they did train me, and at the time it was productivity training. So I don't know if there's a book called Getting Things Done by David Allen,
Yes.
and they said, read this book, and this is what we're going to be teaching people roughly.
Mm.
And it's I had my blog through all this time was called Get Stuff Done. So this felt, well, okay, you know, getting
Yeah.
things done, get
Another
stuff
magical
done.
synchronicity. It's
This
like,
is meant to
okay,
be.
I get it.
And so yeah, they told me to deliver this training, which is around very useful to me as a creative person. It's like basically how to be organized.
Yes.
And it's this way of kind of like, it's like a sort of declutter your brain process.
Mm.
Anyway, I do that with and I sort of was doing that, and we'd go to big corporates and help people organize themselves, which always makes me chuckle slightly because I am able to be organized, but I have to concentrate. And
Yeah.
I think that's what made me good at teaching it. Um, and I still do that. So I also qualified as coach. I still do that work, not
Mm.
with so the initial company I work for, I still work for one of those people, and I have done it since, and
Mm.
that's been brilliant actually.
Mm.
It's like the opposite side of being wildly creative. You know, if you're
Mm.
going to just be intuitive and wild and creative and like, follow all the flows, brilliant. And
Mm.
there's this oppositeness, which is okay, but we also need to get stuff done, and we also need
Yes.
to be a little bit organized, because otherwise it feels too much. And I'm a proliferator, I think, is the way I see myself, as like I can have more ideas, I can do more things, I can do more layers. So I love the way I paint. So I can just
Yeah.
do more. I can just do more and keep going until I stop. And I love painting. I love that proliferation and layers and
Mm.
layers. I love it. But yes, in life, proliferating is a bit overwhelming. So, it's like, let's finish some projects, let's decide to stop doing some, let's edit back, right?
Yes.
So it's the
Yeah,
opposite
and
side that
as
keeps me in check.
creatives, we've always got a million more ideas than we can ever implement in our lives, because
Exactly.
our brains love to come up with these things. And I had a mentor, a kind of a business mentor. You were talking about getting a lot of inspiration from America about these art retreats. And when I was early in coaching, which is probably about the same time, 2007, 2008, starting an online business. And most of the mentors that I followed were in America, because,
Yeah.
they were like 5 years ahead probably of where we were here in the UK. And they had more advanced technology and all this kind of stuff. And I remember watching my first webinar, like stuff that we take for granted now, seeing somebody live. They weren't videoing on, they weren't live video on screen, because that was astronomically expensive.
Yeah.
But to watch a presentation live online, like a PowerPoint thing, and then see them drawing on it, I was like, oh, like, again, a bit like magic. And we can all do it on our phones now, which is incredible. But I can't remember what I was saying. Oh yes, so one of my mentors was really into, structure gives you freedom,
Yes.
because you have to have the groundedness. If we are highly creative, imaginative, spiritual, we love living in this sort of etheric world of beautiful flow, magical things and color and ideas and imagination. And then, yeah, we can overwhelm ourselves with our own thoughts. And the structured, the more masculine energy, if you like, is the structure that helps us to stay on track and not to feel overwhelmed, and help us to focus on, I've got all these ideas, but I can't possibly do them all at once.
This is
What
exactly
what am I
yes.
focusing on, what's important? And but also giving ourselves enough flexibility that we can find that flow when we need it.
Yes, I think, it is, I know, the yin and the yang, or something. I know the two things that balance each other off. The structure holds the freedom. It's like, canvas. It's a canvas. That's a
Yeah.
square.
Yeah.
That's where we're going with that. And there is that sort of limitation that creates, that works with creativity. So
Yeah.
we've got the free flowing creativity, but we've also got some kind of structure that holds it and contains it, so that it becomes something, or it, yeah. Yeah,
Yes,
holds it.
stops it
I
going
think
too
that's
wild. So in improv, we don't just all
dissipate. It
get
can
together and
dissipate,
start
can't it?
improvising. It's like, right, here's the game we're doing, or here's the activity, and here's the parameters. And then we all go, oh, we're within these parameters, but within those parameters, we improvise. So we create anything that comes through us, but we have the parameters to stop us all just doing whatever we like,
Yeah,
which is a form of improv, I guess. But yeah. So having a bit of structure. So yeah.
yeah. So it
Okay.
was
So
really, I mean, really helpful. And
yeah.
I literally can't. It's like I can't give either up. Like, both are really, really deeply necessary to
Yeah.
my life. And
Yeah.
I still use fundamentally that system that I learned as a structure to. I'm not saying I'm the most organized person, but I can be, and I've got a structure for it. It's a bit like,
Mm.
I don't know, like having a cutlery drawer where all the knives, I know where the knives go,
Yeah.
where the spoons go, and
Yeah.
I know how to tidy up, and I can get it back to that thing, which I find helpful. And also a back burner list, however you call it. Like, these are the things that are great ideas I'm just not going to be doing right
Oh,
now.
Totally.
got a
Yeah,
place for them.
I mean, I'm a massive journaler, and I think my brain would explode without journaling. And I think since I've done a lot of journaling, I mean, my life's a lot calmer, but I haven't had like big experiences of burnout because I've got somewhere to put all these
Yeah,
ideas,
yeah,
and also to go, hey, you can't, like, you don't have enough hours in the day to like, I'd need 100 lifetimes to do all my ideas. So it's sort of like, okay, I'll park them there and I can play with them. And some of them, what I've realized is some of my ideas are just for my imagination to have fun. There's no intention ever of really creating it, but it's just, I love thinking about creating it, but I don't have to create it because I get pleasure just from imagining doing it. But I don't have to put the time and energy into all of these things because, yeah, trying to do that before is what burnt me out in the first place. So I've kind of
yeah.
learned that about myself. So yeah, another tip: always have a journal to put your ideas in, but you don't have to do all of them.
Yeah, that's a really nice way of putting it. And I think all just that blood transfusion plugging into life force thing,
Yeah,
it's making sure that you have activities in your life that give you energy.
yeah,
So a lot of things that we do, I mean, especially if you have a full-time job, like all the people I kind of tend to work with who,
yeah,
I mean, I don't do it full-time. I'm
yeah,
still freelance with those people. But I go in and like to them, that's what they're doing all the time. It's like, no, you need to have an activity outside of that. That's it's called opposite worlding,
mm,
which is something that uses such a different part of your brain
mm,
that it's going to actually, even though you're doing an activity, it gives you energy.
mm,
And so a lot of people who do my Wild Art journaling, I have a lot of people who are like designers, so that's what they do as their job. So they're
mm,
creative and they've gone into a creative career, but then there's always a brief, there's always a
yeah,
lot of limitations and a lot of other work that
yeah,
you have to do to run a business.
yeah,
And so it's nice to have for them to have a space where they can just let rip, and
yeah,
like this hour and a half or the day is just for that creative freeform flow mess experiment, all of that kind of stuff
yeah,
for them.
absolutely.
That's going to feed that sense of inspiration, I think.
Yeah, and also remind us that we're inherently creative. So even if you don't have a creative job, so like you say, yeah, you can do a creative job, but you can get kind of caught up with the structure and the politics and you've got to do it this way, and you can kind of feel constrained within that. But just having the freedom. And I know when I first started getting burnt out a bit as a nurse about 30 years ago, that was my proper career, as I say. And my best friend said to me, you haven't sung for ages. You need to get back to singing. You've got such a great
Yes.
voice. And I
Yeah,
started having
wise
singing
friend.
lessons. Yeah, started having singing lessons. And I still had the same job. I was still working on a very busy children's ward. I still had the same life. But once a week, I went and I sang fully with this amazing singing teacher that I had. And then, I joined a band and a group and started singing more. And it literally was like we've explained before. It was just so liberating for a certain part of me. And even when I'd go back to work and I'd be busy on the ward, but part of me would remember that I was a singer as well. And I
Yeah.
remember we did a showcase for all my singing teacher students, and we got together for a rehearsal before the actual show. And it turns out that one of the doctors I was working with, she was also a client of my singing teacher. And we looked at each other and we literally worked together on the same ward. And we had no idea that we were both going to the same singing teacher singing. We looked at each other and were like, you are kidding, right? So it's so good to have a place to express and process and feel and whatever way it comes through you.
Oh,
Yeah, I think
totally. And
yeah.
there's been a whole bunch of studies on people who have very stressful jobs but don't burn out, and they all have something that's like it's it's not like it has to be different. So like there was some tech guy who went tango dancing. That was his
Mm,
thing, and it
mm,
was just this totally different world. Like some other one was like horse riding. Apparently horse riding is really great for that kind of like opposite to whatever stressful job you've got.
yeah,
But it's whatever it is for you, and there's lots of different things that you can do, but it has to give you that feeling of like drinking in life force,
yeah,
isn't it?
totally. Yeah, yeah. And I've I was sort of looking at sort of what I'd done, because I've been on a long healing journey for the last few years from addiction and burnout and stuff, and just going, yeah, there's a column of things that I would say are kind of filling my reservoir and nurturing me and nourishing me, and there's a column of things which is more like me being outwardly expressed, and some of them, you know, are beautiful things, but it's like, if this left hand column, if I'm not full up and I'm not inspired and I'm not feeling rested, then, you know, this column can't work very well. And that's something I've had to learn over the years, because I used to think I could save everyone, you know, as a nurse at one point, you know, half the week, and I was a coach the other half of the week, and I could just give to everybody else, and anybody who's got a job and children will understand this. I don't have kids, but I managed to just go, yeah, I can save everyone and I can serve everyone. And what I've learned over the last few years is, like, you know, we have to have that that fuel, and you know, people talk about filling up your cup first, and I'm like,
Yeah.
can we have a reservoir, not a cup? Like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
if we're doing
Let's
important work in
let's
the
have a
world, we
reservoir.
need something bigger than a
And
cup.
it's almost like, it's not just a reservoir, it's like you're, sorry, I'm gonna go, it feels like you put a kind of like a tube into the reservoir, and then it's like a river going through you that sort of replenishes you, and it's alive, you know, it's not
Yeah,
just filling up and then draining out, it's just something that you're kind of connected
yeah.
to, that is flowing through you, that allows you, I don't know, hard to put in the words really sometimes, isn't it? I mean, we'll
No,
try.
that's a beautiful way of putting it. Yeah, a reservoir feels more static, but yes, something that comes into us, that is refueling us and resourcing us, and yeah, we're allowed to have a rest, we're allowed to sleep, we're allowed to do
Oh
things
yeah.
just for the joy of doing them, just for the pleasure of doing them. And there's a
Yes.
lot of stuff, you know, that didn't used to be in the kind of public arena about, you know, nervous system and all of this stuff, and
Yes.
that wasn't a thing when I was a coach. It was like, set these big goals and work towards them, and you burn out doing that as well. But yeah, just doing things for the pleasure of doing them, that make us feel like we're connected to either our truer self or our creative self, or, you know, just feel nice. To be honest, you know, we don't have to
Yeah,
have a great big purpose to doing it.
it's something about aliveness, isn't it? Or just
Yeah,
gives, like you say, you've got, it's like the tingle in your leg. It's like that. It's
yeah,
quite, you know, it's a weird sort of thing, and it does feel very open, and it feels very resourced,
mm,
and things, when you're in that space, it's like things just arrive
mm,
as well.
yeah,
Like, you know, like I landed a really good job, with no, you know, that they trained me to do
yeah,
straight after I spent 3 days having just a brilliant time doing
yeah,
something I really, really love, that made me feel like I was plugged into the life force. It's like, I don't think that's, you know, it is a coincidence, but also I don't think I'd have said that had I not been feeling so bubbling up of everything, you know, hire
yeah.
me, what is it?
Yeah, totally.
We
And
still laugh
this could
about
be
that.
another 3 hours talking about
Yes,
manifestation
couldn't
and
it?
our biofield and frequency and magnetism and all of that. But we're running out of time.
We
So
are.
yeah, so we've got to the end. So for people who want to experience your wild art journaling, or keep in touch with you online, we'll put all the links below the podcast and the YouTube channel. But where can people find you, Moyra?
So my name is Moyra Scott. It's Moyra with a Y, so MoyraScott, and I'm on Instagram as Moyra Scott. I have a website that is moyrascott.com, and so those are the best places to find out what I'm doing and where I'm doing it. My the Wild Artist Club is online. It's every Sunday morning from 10 to 11:30. And if any of your listeners want to come and try it, because it's an experience and you
Yeah,
can see if you like it. I've had people there for like 5, you know, since I've been doing it online, they've been members and
yeah,
they love it, you know, but
yeah,
I understand, it's like, if you get it and you're like, oh yeah, I love, you know, I love this. This is
yeah,
great. Then well, you can take the process and go away and do it on your own, but you can also join up there. That's it's a space, you know, like that you can come to. And I mostly do art workshops in Brighton and Hove, but
yeah.
I also take wild art on tour. So I'm hoping to come to your way, come
Yeah.
west. I've been down to Devon. I've been up sort of just north of London in the kind of home counties up there, and I'm hoping to go west and north this year.
That would be
So I can
amazing.
come to like a dining table near you,
Yeah.
um, and or you know, a local art place. You know, I went to a kind of venue in Ilfracombe. I went down and did some art journaling there. So I like to travel about. I'll do that in June, May and June probably.
Lovely. I look forward to it. Oh, well, thank you for joining me, Moyra. This has been such a beautiful conversation.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it.
And I'll post another conversation again very soon. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, Claire.